Business as usual only creates more usual business. So the whole world's changing, right? The whole world's changing, and people who just want to keep holding on to something, let's change that saying just a little bit. Businesses that try to maintain are probably only creating a declining business. So this evolution or changes that we're seeing or progression we're seeing, it's coming. And we either going to change with it and control it as it changes, or it's going to control us eventually or kill our business. And so the better that we adapt and the more committed we are to changing, the better we're going to be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Decoding the Digital Industrial Revolution. I'm your host, Arvind Sarin, and today we've got a real treat for you. With years of stellar work at Fortune 500 companies like Honeywell, Whirlpool, and others, our guest today is a part of SW Management, a private equity firm. He has climbed the ranks to operations executive, proving his knack for strategic thinking. But that's not all. He's also the mastermind behind Perfect Planner, a tech firm he founded in 2022. This company is turning heads with its groundbreaking AI-enabled app that automates material planning and procurement processes, making life easier for businesses everywhere. So, without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Thomas Beil. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Arvind. It's nice to be here.
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Could you start by telling us a bit about your background and what led you to your current role at Perfect Planner?
Sure. So when I came out of college in 2008, I joined a small to medium-sized plastics compounder in the Nashville area. And the first project I was assigned was implementing a new enterprise system. So we were moving from Southware over to SAP. And so my role was to support the integration by creating and documenting our procedures and then training all the departments how to use the system in alignment with our ISO certification initiatives. And so what became very noticeable to me was the disconnect between how these systems were built and how the function level needed to be supported. So they seem very cumbersome. I remember hearing this, a meaning for the acronym SAP, which is start adding people. And it was really funny because it was really true. These were very convoluted now functions, even going from like a DOS-based Southware to an SAP. And so that made me realize, with a little bit of the tech background that I had, that even back in 2009, man, we got to do something about this, because 15 years ago, I saw that these systems were already outdated. So I started just building optimization solutions to help myself and my team, make complex tasks and decisions easy. And so today it's called process automation that we see. And so back then it was spreadsheets. I'm going to VBA code and API over to these systems and pull stuff in. But that method and approach that I took worked so well that it kind of catapulted my career into Fortune 500. And then I climbed from an analyst level to an executive. And so then over the years, after leading a lot of digital transformation teams and initiatives and advancing technology integration, I really developed a core competency of transforming the functions that heavily use these systems. And so that's, and really the claim to fame would be the analytical functions, like the ones that have to use the data and analyze the data. So I'm very fortunate. And that really led me into why I launched Perfect Planner. Go ahead.
Well, fantastic. That's quite a journey and such an inspiration. Now, of course, a lot of us in the audience as well always want to leverage the knowledge that they gain over a decade, 2 decades, and then put that into a product. But you actually had the courage to go forward and create that product. So what inspired you to start Perfect Planner? And in fact, tell us a little bit more about what it does. What are the core offerings? And how did you go about that decision-making process? Like, what problem you wanted to solve?
I think the inspiration for Perfect Planner and founding the company was from experiencing the supply chain challenges in the trenches. So I encountered these personally, whether in the roles that I sat in or that I was managing. And it was really the goal I had in mind was, can we address these outdated methods, the systems, processes that were being used that really were antiquated? They needed to be reinvented. And so we launched our first offering, which was dealing with the material planning and buying function. And that was what we wanted to address because it felt like material planning was the most underrepresented in the software space. So naturally, we saw a gap and we wanted to see if we could bring a commercial product to market. And our goal is really to integrate advanced technologies, analytics, and AI to streamline and simplify that role, thereby, impacting organizations and helping them and supporting them and their leadership and their planners with the tools needed for everyone to be successful.
So what would you say to some people who think that's like eliminating the jobs of buyers and planners?
So that's a really good question. What we are experiencing in industry right now is a skill gap. I think companies are having a hard time finding the right skills. I think academia has almost played a part, even though I, teach on a college level myself. But really what you find is that there is a disconnect between the skills we need to do these analytical functions and the people that are available who have those skill sets. And that's really where the idea or the misconception of technology is here to replace us really can be rebutted. And what I think it is that we need to view technology as a complement, not a replacement. So for us, it's really important to know that most of these positions were hired to be very strategic, to support the company, locate opportunities, and also, support those strategic initiatives and objectives from the top. And most of them have also kind of turned into tactical, very tactically focused, expediting type roles. And that is where... Go ahead.
So I think what you're trying to say then is that generally in, our race, there's going to be people who love to be analytical, use their brain all the time, have a lot of knowledge accumulated, but you cannot have, or it's not efficient to have everybody have that same knowledge. So why not put that knowledge in a system, use AI and other techniques, and then dumb down a lot of this or eliminate a lot of those tedious jobs so that people can do more meaningful things and, be working on actual corner cases and solving some of those problems that even, would maybe have a gray line. So that's what your software probably does.
It really does. I remember when I was working for one of the large companies, and there was a data analyst that came into one of the digital transformation team meetings. And he was very concerned. And he said, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be looking at this, but over 50% of our planners and schedulers are over the age of 55. Like in 10 or 12 years when they all decide to retire, what are we going to do? And it's a very real problem. And so we dug into a little bit deeper, come to find out it was either people didn't want the jobs, the younger generation specifically, or they didn't have the skills to do the jobs. So technology can help us upskill and also really open up these positions to a wider range of skill sets and different levels of expertise, which I think is what technology will help us do.
I love that. And I think this is not just a problem in supply chain or inventory management, but it may be a problem that exists in many other those non-sexy roles. I mean, including, I'll tell you that even when we had an opportunity to help Westinghouse Electric, and they're into servicing nuclear power plants, I know that there were just a handful of people who had worked there for like many, many decades. And we heard some similar numbers that 78% of the people that worked at Westinghouse Electric were eligible to retire within the next 2 years. So it was that urgent of a challenge, because perhaps some of these industries haven't been able to attract the younger generation. And I think whatever is in their head, all of that decision making needs to come out. But that is a huge challenge. I mean, there may be many industries, as I said, where it's like, oh no, this is the judgment call. No, that judgment call can somehow be programmed, if not in a logical programming code, then by the help of AI and different parameters. And that can be done, and you just need to break it down. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest opportunities in getting that knowledge out of the head of people who've done such an amazing job for decades. And then instead of just, coaching younger people on just those analytical skills and then not solving that problem, but like you say, opening it up for a wider audience. I guess so. That is one of the key misconceptions, but I kind of wanted to ask you around what are some of the significant benefits that you are seeing using AI in supply chain management, and what are some of the other misconceptions about AI in supply chain management that you would like to debunk? Of course, one of which is this, that, it's going to replace the jobs, but what are some of the other ones that you hear commonly?
Well, I think on the benefits, if we start on the benefits side, the biggest benefits that I see from integrating AI is really dramatic improvement in data processing and decision accuracy. That's really it. Good story behind that is at Perfect Planner, we completed a time study. And so I actually got one of the best planners that's ever worked for me. He's got 7 years of experience in multiple Fortune 500 companies, really sharp guy, really educated. And we wanted to compare his ability to analyze, kind of the old school planning way, with Perfect Planner. And so we conducted a time study, exact same data sets, and the same requirements. Hey, we want you to find shortages and opportunities for savings, root cause analysis, calculate all variances, and a whole list of things. So this individual went and completed the task. 7.7 hours later, he comes back and submits, what he has. And he found the data was so big that we just did a sample of 50 part numbers. And so he found 11 projected shortages, and those part numbers provided us with like 4 weeks of visibility. And again, it took him 7.7 hours to do it. And so then we looked at his work, and he was about 88% accurate. And so then you shift over to Perfect Planner that's AI enabled, and kind of like what you said, what we do is we've taken all those industry learnings, we've taken all those years, and we've essentially built an AI engine that thinks like a senior planner, except without the human error. And so then Perfect Planner ran the same data in less than a second at 99% accuracy and found twice as many shortages, 6 months of visibility instead of 4 weeks. I mean, just across the board.
Yeah.
And so then this kind of moves into the whole job displacement fear that's out there. One of the big misconceptions is that this is here to replace my job. I would submit that that's not true. Instead, I would say, hey, do you really like doing spreadsheet analysis? Do you really like looking at system screens, running reports, being tactical? Did you wake up and say, I want to be an expediter today? No, you have a degree. You want to be strategically linked to your company, contributing in a way that's going to affect the bottom line. And that's really what we allow planners to get to, is what they were hired to do, which was to be strategic. Honeywell had this idea that they needed both tactical and strategic planners. I disagree. All the tactical stuff is essentially non-value added activity. So let technology handle that piece. And then we can get to the stuff that is really what's needed from the human-centric piece, which is making the good decisions based on the insights provided.
Wonderful. But wouldn't you argue that with Gen AI, now you can even generate ideas and that strategic thinking? So, I mean, what happens then when it gets to another level where, I mean, really instead of a dozen planners, you need 4?
So I do think that the work is going to shift. Just like when the production line went in, right? We have these production lines. Oh, wow. Conveyors. Everybody was scared because they're like, well, what are we going to do now? And then the work shifted to other jobs. And I think that having technical skill sets, you probably will get to a place where you're going to be more about managing the systems and ensuring that they're running properly and accurately. And that's really where those roles and functions are probably going to shift to. But ultimately, the work is going to shift. Is there going to be some automation and some elements of elimination in jobs? I think so, but I think that there's going to be openings in new areas, which historically we've seen through every really innovative period. And so that's really where I think academia needs to get on board. I tell my business students, because I teach at Lee University, my alma mater, and I tell them, I said, 95% of you are going to come out and you're going to be called analyst. Yet you only have 3 or 4 technical classes over the course of all 4 years. So how's that, going to really aid you? I think that a lot of times higher education is trying to prepare them for the boardrooms, when in reality, that's probably 20 years down the road for some of them. And the majority of them may not ever get there. So what we need to do is have more technical stuff. We should be putting in process automation centers and that type of stuff in these schools, because ultimately with technology and this digital, this I 4.0, digital industrial revolution that we're experiencing, that's where it's headed.
Which is a good segue. Yeah, which is a good segue to my next question. Like, how do you think the Industry 4 or even smart factories for that matter redefine the traditional manufacturing? Like you said, from the conveyor belts, when the conveyor belts came out, there was this fear, and, now the robotics, and the Tesla factory and all these great innovations that we see. And of course, then from that, redefined traditional manufacturing, talk about like the distribution models and supply chain ecosystem as well. What does that look like in the near future?
That's a really great question, Arvind. And, what I really see in the smart factories and Industry 4.0 is we're setting a new standard of how we're going to manufacture and distribute. When we're going to integrate AI and the Internet of Things and robotics, although robotics have been around for a couple decades now, but still all of these technologies are going to be integrated seamlessly into the core of operations. And, this evolution is not just about efficiency and reducing waste. Lean's been around a while too, right? That's what we've been trying to do. What I really think it's going to do, even more so than that, is enable responsiveness. Like, how do we adapt to supply chain challenges and disruptions and have a more sustainable and consistent supply chain network? And so having those technologies which give you the traceability, real-time monitoring, predictive maintenance, and forecasting capabilities, it's really going to redefine it.
I think you said it. Yeah, these are the top talked about trends and use cases in the industry for sure. And so I guess then, what are some of the emerging technologies that you believe would have the most significant impact on supply chain resilience in the face of, unforeseen disruptions like what we experienced during the pandemic and in the war in Middle East and Ukraine war and all of the geopolitical issues that we continue to face, what do you anticipate? What emerging technologies would have the most significant impact in supply chain management?
I believe that there's several that I think are going to do or have a huge impact on the supply chain in the coming years. And one is artificial intelligence for predictive analytics. Even genai, it's getting really good. It's able to make really good strategic decisions, and I always get really interested, excited with all the advancements that ChatGPT comes along with. They're on, I guess it's 4.0 now, and it's amazing. But I do believe that we need to be able to predict things with a high level of accuracy and success. I think blockchain is a great technology for enhanced transparency. IoT is going to connect everything, which is going to then be able to use these other technologies to essentially throughout the entire system be able to support in building more resilient supply chains. And then, of course, being able to predict disruptions, and securing data exchanges and maintaining communication, that's critical. I really like some of these integrated supply chain solutions, like the umbrella solutions that are pulling in all the suppliers and all the logistics, all those elements together, because it does give you good transparency. And I see those continuing to grow and develop as well.
I think that covers a good number of awesome technologies. Of course, AI, blockchain, IoT, and then, predictive type stuff, including, predictive maintenance, predictive disruption. I think that's definitely some of the ones that we're looking forward to as well. We've had an opportunity to implement some of these, especially one example is that I love to talk about always is demand forecasting. I think that's another one that goes hand in hand with, really allowing to empower these manufacturers and, getting that visibility, so I think super interesting. Now, as an industry thought leader, how do you navigate the fine line between embracing technological advancements and really preserving that human-centric aspect of supply chain operations? Like, there are some things that need to be preserved. What do you think?
Where I believe technology can really complement us is in a lot of the strategic decision making. But I also think customer or business partner interactions. When you're looking at, for instance, with Perfect Planner, we have built an AI engine, which we call the IntelliPlanning Logic Engine, IPL engine. And it thinks just like a planner. It understands situational awareness, understands strategies and the differences between parts. It does such heavy lifting, and it's really great from an analytical perspective, being both algorithm based and machine learning based. It's incredible. We've been able to take all of those learnings and put it in there. What about the qualitative piece? That's really where you still need planners to read the data, make good strategic decisions, and they're going to email suppliers. They're going to email management. Hey, here's what's going on. We've got these disruptions, or we have the shortage that we're taking care of. Or, hey, we found $80,000 in opportunity by reducing safety stocks. So I think that piece is still like a few years off, and there is a human side to it that is needed. I think also on the leadership side, I don't really see AI being a very effective leader. You're a people leader, you're leading teams. That's another area that you need someone, because how do you code empathy? How do you code support? A lot of these systems, they can see the data, but there are a lot of things that don't happen in the data. You can code it the best you can. I put on in all these industry learnings, but ultimately there's still going to be, I've had these experiences, and it's beyond what I can code and beyond what's in the data. And so from a decision-making perspective, I think that there for quite some time, and I don't know if it'll ever get replaced, you still need someone overseeing it. Even if you were to reduce how many planners you have, you would still need someone overseeing all of the insights and the executables that are occurring within what is being produced.
So overseeing, taking those strategic decisions where the line may be blurred, and also building relationship with the customers, having that human-centric, that relationship approach, and then, of course, being a good leader and inspiring your team, and just really getting all of them aligned on that common goal. I think those are the kinds of then important things that would be useful in the world in the near future. What about with the increasing complexity and interconnectedness of global supply chains? How can companies leverage digital twins and simulation technologies to improve forecasting and decision making?
I love this question. Digital twins and simulation technologies, they provide a virtual model of supply chain, and they allow companies to kind of do some what-if analysis, test scenarios and predict outcomes without actually taking, the risk to their resources. And so I think that this is going to be an invaluable piece of technology in the future, because it's going to enable decision makers to visualize the impact of whatever change it is that they want to put in place. And then they can also anticipate what the outcome of that change is going to be. And I think that is going to support decision making tremendously in the future. In fact, we use that at several companies I've worked for, is the whole simulation piece, running hundreds or thousands of simulations to find what's optimal. And then we're going to put that in place. And
I think when the cost goes down to near zero, to run an experiment, guess what? We're going to have that improvement and advancement happening at an exponential pace. And that's going to be really important. And I feel like digital twins gives that, an amazing opportunity, to the companies. What are some potential barriers to achieving end-to-end visibility in supply chains? Because any trend that I have looked at in supply chain, in transportation and logistics, the number one project that companies are investing in is transparency. And how can emerging technologies help overcome some of these challenges?
I think from the barriers piece of it, some of the biggest things that we see at Perfect Planner and the companies I've worked with have been siloed data, legacy systems, lack of integration across channels. And that's really what you hear a lot, the data piece.
Absolutely.
If you look at a lot of companies when they come in for integrations, and when I was working at Honeywell and Whirlpool, and we worked with a lot of different vendors that were, bringing us potential solutions that we could use in-house, what we noticed was long integration periods, typically 6 to 12 months. It's pretty common. In fact, that's something that everybody's like, how long does it take for you to integrate with us? And truthfully, that's mainly due to data. It's mainly due to the data. We've got to normalize this data. We've got to clean this data. We got to get it. Oh, wait, this data's over here, but then wait, you manage your inventory over here. Well, we got to get these connected. And so that is a huge piece. Of course, aligning tech teams and schedules. It's a nightmare almost. And so what we have to do is, I think, use emerging technologies like cloud computing, APIs. We've got to bridge these gaps and enable seamless data flow, which is going to then provide us with that consolidated and transparent view of operations that we want.
Absolutely. I concur with you that one of the very recent projects that we did for a manufacturing company. They're a steel fabricator. The most number of hours were put in for the integration with Tekla. You may be aware of Tekla. They're, like very widely used, including Tesla uses them, and all of that data was with them and just integrating. Even though they're a very good company, they're very cooperative, but it was one by one, getting the right data, cleansing it, and but what if there were the best possible, microservices and all of the APIs already there, and still secure? Because then the question comes about security. Because sometimes when we work with companies like Suzuki, we're running a pilot with them, and they are so like paranoid about their data, and partly because of perhaps certain impact that they may have had in the past, and it's very hard for them to get over some of those impacts that they've had because of the data breaches. So they're on lockdown. I mean, even in other companies, we spend a lot of time working with the CISOs, the Chief Information Security Officers, to ensure that they're satisfied and it meets, that type of criteria. But I think, that definitely is an important challenge that needs to be overcome. Data needs to be proper in order to utilize some of these very innovative tools that are going to be now becoming available. How can companies harness the power of predictive analytics and prescriptive insights to anticipate demand fluctuations and optimize inventory management, in your opinion?
So predictive analytics, it can analyze the historical data and market trends, and it can forecast future demand, and prescriptive insights can suggest optimal responses, in these predictions. I think I look at it from, the full spectrum of analytics, right? And these can absolutely help. It's what we do at Perfect Planner. It's what I've done in most of my career. It's always about keep refining so we have an accurate forecast. In most of the companies I worked for, they had forecast accuracy of anywhere from about 40 to 70%. That I never saw over 70%. Like that. Wow. And if you think about, it's the gap, right? So it's like, what are we not seeing in that 30% gap? Even the ones that are 70%, they say that world-class accuracy for forecast is 85%. Well, that still tells me there's a lot of impact there in that 15% gap, if that's world-class. So of course, that's why we have inventories, right? We have inventories to protect for variance. And what I think we can do, especially with the way technology is progressing with predictive and prescriptive analytics, is that we can now optimize. We can start finding the right paths. Simulations are a great one. You're running a bunch of simulations to see what is the right way. And a lot of these forecasting solutions are doing that now, which is fantastic. And so if you integrate these analytics into your supply chain, you're going to have a more accurate picture of customer demand patterns. How do we avoid stockouts and surpluses, and also, optimize or adjust inventory levels. And so all this is going to do is this is going to ensure that you have, a very productive environment, and you're going to reduce carrying costs and also keep your production lines running, which of course is supporting your customers, the most important piece.
Absolutely. It is definitely one of the key aspects. So I really enjoyed this conversation, but I still think that what if there's someone in the audience who is, let's say a VP or a president at a company, that is into manufacturing, let's say. And, what advice would you give to that company if they're thinking about their digital transformation journey, like especially managing like the supply chain. I mean, there's just so much information out there. There are so many things that can be done. As we talked about, from modernizing some of their applications to getting the data in the right place, creating those APIs for different applications to talk to each other, getting into predictive maintenance, getting into, other predictive insights and analytics and demand forecasting. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So at times, it just becomes really hard. Can you help some of the leaders who actually have genuine interest in digital transformation and give advice to how should they go about their journey?
That's another great question. I think you need to start with a clear understanding of your current processes. And you need to pinpoint areas where technology can add the most value. So, as I was going through my Lean Six Sigma journey and getting my black belt, it was really focused on process before technology. If we can define our processes, if we can understand that, and that's what we do a perfect planner, is standardize the process for planning. And that's an example. But if we can understand those processes, then we will have a really nice package to hand over to technology, which can help us optimize and automate. So it's really important that you can't skip the process step. So you have to start there. You have to know what that process is at every function. How do we do that? It needs to be comprehensive. Second thing is you really need to prioritize data integrity and system integration. We need to get these systems connected, and we need to make sure that the data flowing out is accurate enough to where we can take the next step. And I think that next step is we need to build a team. Most companies that are going through digital transformations, they're building teams, digital transformation teams that are handling different elements of that digital transformation. I really like, Honeywell started their digital transformation back in 2018, and they had this slogan, the future is what we make it. #future shapers, right? And I love that because they were building a team. That was their slogan for the digital transformation, but they were actually building their team to be both technology focused, but also in the different areas. So for supply chain people, they had their supply chain operations people that they wanted them to be really well understanding of not only the supply chain side, but also what's coming down the pipe. And then lastly, I think that beyond building a team that is well-versed in both technology and each of the functions, we really need leadership to be committed to driving change. It may happen bottom up, it may happen at the function levels and we work our way up, or it may happen top down, bottom up, and we meet in the middle. But the driving change and fostering an environment and a culture of innovation must be from the top. And they've got to say, this is what we're going to do, because there's a saying I love, and it says that business as usual only creates more usual business. So the whole world's changing, right? The whole world's changing, and people who just want to keep holding on to something, let's change that saying just a little bit. Businesses that try to maintain are probably only creating a declining business. So this evolution or changes that we're seeing, or progression we're seeing, it's coming. And we either going to change with it and control it as it changes, or it's going to control us eventually or kill our business. And so leadership has to understand that, hey, the better that we adapt and the more committed we are to changing, the better we're going to be.
Love that advice. And I think it's very comprehensive. And I'd like to make sure that I'm able to um, summarize this one more time here. So the step one is ensuring that you know what your processes are. When we run a digital transformation workshop, that's exactly what we do. We're like, no, we want to know everything that's happening, including, like when we went to Westinghouse Electric, we had like either it's in Figma or it's on a chart paper. Okay, what happens when the first time customer calls? Then what happens? Then what happens? And you map out the entire process, because sometimes there's going to be a challenge. Oh, should I be using digital transformation to become paperless in my HR processes? What about some of the automation, intelligent automation in finance? What about invoice processing? Again, it's easy to get bogged down, but just looking at those processes, first step is very important. And then I also like very much what you said. It's if your data is not good, if it's not captured, if it's not integrated, if it's not available, then what good does it do? That just handicaps you from building anything whatsoever. So that's going to have to be a very important focus to capturing that right data. And then number three, fostering that culture of innovation where the skill that you're coaching is experimenting and continuous improvement, like the word goes Kaizen, running those experiments in those small pockets and having multiple innovation centers that are not just focused on one area or a very centralized system, but then in all the processes. And that's why the saying that I love is that digital transformation is not about technology, it's about mindset. It's about building that culture of questioning, how can we do this better? What new tools, technologies are now available? So I love that advice. This is fantastic. And with that said, folks, we've reached the end of another mind-expanding episode. Thomas, your perspective has been like a compass guiding us through this maze of digital transformation. I've truly savored every moment of this conversation. It's been an absolute thrill. As we conclude, let's remember, innovation isn't just about embracing new technology. It's about envisioning a future where possibilities are limitless. Thomas, thank you for your share. Thank you for sharing your brilliance with us today. To all our listeners hungry for more insights, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay tuned, and we'll continue to decode ever-evolving landscape of industry and technology. Until next time, keep exploring, keep evolving, and keep daring to disrupt the status quo. Goodbye.